I'm like an addict, do I gotta have it. I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it, fuse like a magnet. Lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the shit tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, nah I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's facts. Only I can make a change. Slowly take a step today. I will never be the same, cause that's what it takes.
Hey guys, happy Sunday. Welcome to the stream. Welcome, May. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm reading the comments. You guys are funny. Did you have a really fun night without me the other night? It looks like
we had a pretty lit Friday night. On Friday night where I had no power and no internet, but I was kind of celebrating the fact that the settlement that we've been saying would pass finally went through. I had maybe one drink too many, May, toasting all the haters who said we were going to be wrong. Anyways,
I might have some drinks myself. I'm not gonna lie. So.
What are you drinking tonight?
I'm just having a Bordeaux. I'm trying to learn the Bordeaux region of France, so I've been just drinking Bordeaux.
Very nice. I'm trying a new Scotch tonight, and I'm not going to have too many. I promise, May. We're going to keep it civil for you tonight.
Sunday show, guys.
Yeah, this is a Japanese Scotch, the Nika coffee grain whiskey. I've heard a lot about the Japanese Scotch being really, really good, and one of my subscribers recommended this one. So just trying it out, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, very smooth, a little bit sweeter than normal.
So let's see where we're at. Friday, after many months of us telling folks that the settlement was likely to go through, it finally did. We got the judge's opinion memorandum, and then we got updates on the docket on Saturday. I don't know if you saw those, May. The judge's order and her denial of Izzo's motion and etc. There were a couple updates from Friday that didn't drop till Saturday.
Oh, I might have to take another look.
So that's where we're at. I don't know if I'm not an attorney. I don't know if there's going to be like one more final order, or I think that the parties have to present one more piece of paper, one more motion. But we're very close, and the paperwork clearly said that the status quo order is to be lifted. We have that little bit of uncertainty, right? If Izzo is going to file an appeal with the Supreme Court in Delaware. So we don't know that, but we believe that AMC is going to try and move very quickly to try and do the reverse split and conversion. And a big question on everybody's minds is, when is that going to happen? Is it really 10 days, or did they preload the 10 days since they've known about this for a long time? Yeah. Do you have any knowledge if they have any ability to work with their concierge contact at the NYSE and preload that paperwork? Any thoughts or ideas on that?
I don't think they can preload it, and I also think they really need to put out a press release.
They do need that, yeah. They need a press release and an 8K, right?
Agree. Like yes and yes.
So it won't be Monday. I think we can both agree on that, because they got to drop a press release and have a date of effectiveness and an 8K notifying investors that this is coming.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody probably saw the NYSE stuff that went around. I think you posted it. I posted it. So it does take 10 days to give notification and have it be recorded. But like, I'm with you. I don't know. It's unclear to me. And also, in some cases, I think firms can move forward with if there's still a potential for appeal, but in other cases they can't. So that one still has to come as well.
So I looked at the NYSE manual, as I'm sure you did, and it very clearly says 10 days. What I'm telling my folks always is expect the unexpected in this case.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if it's faster than 10 days.
Oh, you think it might be faster?
I think it might be. Yeah.
Interesting. I don't have a thought on it. I'm just like, I would say, okay, so like the options people are a little freaked out because some of them have exposure for this week versus next week.
Yeah.
And then if it could even be the case, like let's say there is, I don't know the legal well enough. I do know there are many things that can be done even if there's an appeal going on after it gets to a certain point. I'm not sure where this falls in this, but like if if it goes later than that, I think that really screws up the options market in an intriguingly scary way. So I mean, that's really going to be more power to anyone who's, got the cojones to go there this next 2 weeks.
Since you brought up options, what are your thoughts on people that are starting to tell folks go buy puts next week on Monday?
If it was any other stock than AMC, where it's just a simple arbitrage, maybe. But the challenge is that like you can't really just think the arbitrage will happen because your risk is this. If it was a simple arbitrage, that would totally make sense. But you have the difference in the FTDs, which is severe, right? And then you've got just people that are excited and having a good time gaming this thing. And then you don't have clarity on which precise week it is. And if the vol was cheap, then yeah, it wouldn't matter. If the vol was like 20, no problem. But the vol, I wouldn't be surprised if it opened Monday over 200. But we shall see. I could be wrong though, too, because maybe it starts to trade almost immediately after the open. That spread just closes like normal. And then vol sinks and shrinks. And then maybe, yeah, but that's it's very rare that anything has gone as expected with AMC.
Yeah, for sure.
So
we're gonna be watching it very early, in pre-market tomorrow, both AMC and APE for opportunities, because nobody knows for sure what's going to happen, and volatility is about the one thing that you can count on, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think, but I'm actually surprised where some people feel strongly that it's so obvious that even if the vol increases in the morning, that it somehow magically shrinks almost immediately. I just don't, look, I'm too afraid to make a strong call on anything as it relates to AMC and how it would trade. I can tell you the other stuff that's just fact from the documents and stuff, but anything short of that's really tough with this particular name, right? Like,
I've been watching social media, and I think there's, clearly a lot of people that are chomping at the bit to buy the dip on AMC in pre-market tomorrow. What are your thoughts on what is? I know this is, we're not going to hold you accountable for this, and I'll share my thoughts too. But let's just if we had to guess, May, what's going to happen in the morning in pre-market before the bell? What do you anticipate happening?
I don't have thoughts on that. I was actually kind of excited to see what the discussion would lead. The only thing that I feel strongly about right now is the debt. Okay. Buy the debt if you can. I know not every broker lets you do that, but the debt actually seems like the best call. APE probably trades up is my guess, but the fact is, like, even if APE trades up, it's probably going to still be I don't think it trades all the way up to where AMC is, because AMC is really the piece that has to settle down.
Yep. And yeah, I was surprised, honestly, that I was expecting a little bit bigger pop on APE, like maybe for 5 minutes over $3, but we didn't get that. So yeah, that was very telling to me when it kind of capped out at 235.
Yeah, that totally agreed. Like, that's not great. And I almost wonder if the reason that's happening is because you still have this really bizarre group of thought process, let's call it. I don't want to call anyone anything negative at this point, but like, I think there's still some really strong feelings that are wrong as relates to the difference between APE and AMC and what's going on.
May, since you brought up the word arbitrage, there's a lot of debate going on, May. Was this an arbitrage play? Did we see arbitrage happening in after hours on Friday?
Yeah, I mean, there were some people there. So there may have been some people that entered it newly, meaning they went long APE, short AMC. But that's just like, given what the stock did, it is possible that this would have happened, right? So this would be new shorts coming in on AMC and new longs coming in on APE. Yeah.
Do you think that the price action, the big drop in AMC and the move up on APE was a result of an arbitrage play? I guess is my question.
I do. I mean, I that would be my guess.
I don't know why there's people in such denial that this was an arbitrage play and that the price.
What do they think it is?
Huh?
What do they think it is if it's not arbitrage?
I don't know what they think it is. I think they're making up shit in their own head, to be blunt. But the arbitrage play Arbitrage, to be fair, is shorting AMC and going long on APE, right? And then
Yeah.
others of us were
Deliver-
paying. Others were just playing the conversion play, like not shorting, just going long on APE.
Yes.
Right. There's two different ways you could play it.
Yeah.
I don't short, so I did not do the arbitrage play, but I was heavier on APE and loading up when it was cheap, anticipating that there'd be a huge pop on APE, as we've been talking about for months here. And I've put up in my Discord and talked about many times my anticipation that AMC would fall when the settlement happened because of arbitrage, the two prices coming together.
Yeah, the biggest challenge for why someone might have come out of that arbitrage or waited until the announcement is just because you do have to pay for the borrow rate on the AMC.
Right.
So that was still, there were a couple things. So first, APE and AMC weren't trading like a traditional arbitrage where the spread stays the same the entire time. AMC was going like this, and APE was just hanging out. As we all know, it was just hanging out. And so when I was looking at it originally, I was like, I don't trust this because this is not a stable spread. So if you were going to try to do this trade, then this is not, because this is not staying stable. I'm going to try not to use any of the math words. Because this is not staying stable, this is a very dangerous trade, right?
Yep.
So if other folks were doing this the same way that I was, they should have hopefully seen that and been like, nope, there's just one side to this trade. Do you know what I mean? So now though, if there's truly 10 days left, then they can calculate out the daily cost for them on the borrow, which even though it's showing as 1,000%, remember that's annualized. So it's still less than 1%, but the spread is still much larger than 1% between APE and AMC. So one of the nicer things to do to get some of the ARBs out of it would be just to tighten up that spread such that there's nothing left, but you're still having to pay that 1%. So
that's exactly what I think is going to happen. You're going to see that spread continue to tighten up over the next 5 days.
Yeah. So then that would mean that what's holding the gap on the spread is actually the borrow cost. And if that's the case, then it would be reducing each day. But then that's the challenge, which goes back to where we started, which is how many days are there before this thing closes? And we need a press release. If Adam Aaron is watching, please put out a press release because I'm not sure the answer
there'll be one on Monday, May. There'll be one on Monday.
Yeah, hopefully. Knock on wood. I mean, I get it.
I can't guarantee that. I'm not in communication with Adam Aaron or anyone at AMC, but I have a feeling
he must have been celebrating.
Huh?
I mean, he must have been celebrating. I don't know how much he can still do at his age.
To sit quietly by and have people call you names for months and months saying that the settlement would never go through. Yes, I was celebrating on Friday.
Not you, the whole AMC team.
Oh, them too. Absolutely. But they knew. I mean, and even if they didn't, even if the settlement wasn't approved, they had a plan B, I'm sure. They're going to get their money. That's how corporations are. They needed it, right, May? Do you think they need a cash raise, May? Let's talk financials for 1 second.
Okay, I want to be really gentle when I talk about this because I do actually.
Don't be gentle. My audience likes it rough, May. They don't call me Tim Grip for nothing.
All right, here's what I'm going to say. To run a business in an economic environment like this and not consider raising capital would be rare. Let me say it that way. There are some, the challenge is if you were like any other business that didn't have, okay, let's actually talk about this way. You're a business guy, so this is already how you think, but just for some of the folks that haven't had certain roles that allow them to be forced to think in certain ways, which, lots of people very clever, but haven't necessarily had to think about how to fund a business before. There's different types of businesses. There are businesses that are what we call asset light. All right. But this is not that kind of business. This is like a physical theater where people punch holes in walls and do really dumb stuff. Toilets have to be replaced, all that stuff. When you have that kind of business, you have to have some extra cash. That's what that CapEx line is. I've talked about in my videos. I know you've talked about in your videos. CapEx is really scary. CapEx, if you thought about it, it'd be like if you had bought your house brand new versus you've got a bunch of 30-year-old houses. You want to have no cash and think that everything's going to be perfect in your house. It's not the smartest way to run the business. with rates increasing right now, and with, yes, amazing box office, not taking that away. And yes, next quarter, obviously going to be great, Barbenheimer, right? And
Yep.
yes, probably through the end of the year. Those are all things that if all of the theaters were like brand spanking new, then I'd be like, all right, I get it. But that's not what we're dealing with here. And also you've got the writer strike. So even if he didn't necessarily, like, even if he could skate by, it would be so aggressive to run your business that way. It's not that it couldn't be done that way. It's more that it's super scary to do it that way.
I think what a lot of people are having trouble accepting, May, is that the management suite is not going to sit by and think only 1 quarter ahead or 2 quarters ahead, right? They're strategic thinkers, right? If AMC has 2 bad quarters where we're losing 200 million again, which obviously wasn't Q2 and is probably not going to be Q3. If there were Q4 and Q1 were slow, for example, they run out of cash more or less.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the things for me on this quarter that were particularly notable is that there was one moment where he was talking about what he thought the estimated box was looking to be at. And he was like, we're probably over 9.5 billion, but he did not feel comfortable saying that we were at over 11 billion, which is what the business needs in general. The business, all theaters needs is an $11 billion box. He didn't feel confident just saying with his chest that we were back to 2019 where the box office was 11 billion. And then there's this huge note in the 10K or the 10Q that says that we're still 26% in the previous quarter of what 2019 is. Now in the third quarter that includes Barbenheimer and everything else, we might be like smack in line with 2019. But this business isn't like other businesses. This business is dependent on the next set of films that comes out. And that usually is 6 months ahead. And we're like sitting in front of a writer's strike situation. So it's a little bit scary. Remember, you can't raise money later. You have to raise money before you need it.
I've talked about that so many times, May. Like when I watch people who advise Wall Street executives, when is it time to raise money? The advice always is you raise money before you need it, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, totally. I mean, you can always refinance that money if rates decline. You can always buy back stock or pay down debt. There's any numbers of things you can do once you have the money, but you can't.
If you're waiting till the last minute to raise money, if you're waiting till you have your last 100 million, you are screwed.
Oh yeah, because everybody knows it too. They're like,
the shorts will obliterate you.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been trying to communicate to people. Why is they want to know, why is he raising money now if he has 435 million left? Because guys, you don't, as a CEO, wait until you're down to your last 100 million. By the time he's down to his last 100 million, May, the lenders are going to be foreclosing, pushing for Chapter 11.
Yeah. I mean, I know people are really hoping that cash flow positive next quarter will make it all look better. It's just such a big pile of money on the debt side.
The other thing that I saw a lot of people doing, May, on social media was focusing on the 1 penny positive earnings per share, which was fantastic, which wasn't as good as I wanted, but it's still positive a penny. But they focus only on that, and they didn't look at the cash burn.
Yeah, the cash burn's a problem.
And I think it's worth taking 1 minute to talk about the fact that you can't ignore the cash burn is still happening, even though the company has a positive on the EPS.
Yeah.
That is why these executives are still needing to do a cash raise.
Yeah. Just remember that excluded, I mean, it's a little bit hard because he's trying to pay down interest. So if the issue was he just had, like, let's say he actually didn't have $3 billion due in 2006, the company doesn't make money such that they could pay off the $3 billion all in cash. So he has to refinance that. So that's what him trying to buy debt in the aftermarket at cents on the dollar is about. And that's part of the reason why that interest expense is a little bit, yeah, exactly. 2026. Sometimes I say 2016. I forget which year I'm in. But like 2026, 2020. So he's got to pay some of that down. So this is not a circumstance where he just has to make like regular interest payments, because if he fails to pay some of that down, it's a problem. And that rate is really high. It's at 12% and change. So that right there, plus maintenance capex, not even, and then expansion cap, growth capex. So those two capexes will make the cash flow continue to be negative. And remember, maintenance capex will continue to grow until you do the proper full capex. This is exactly like, when you have to replace something in your house, but you've been duct taping it, and it just gets more expensive every single time you forget. You need to replace the fridge, right?
For the non-finance people, capex is capital expenditures, which is what they expend every month or every quarter to do maintenance and upgrades, right? Adding laser projectors, upgrading seats, fixing toilets, fixing AC systems.
Fridge,
and a lot of times, as you know, companies that are cash strapped will cut back on capex,
which they did
to try and make the 10Qs look better. But you can only put off that maintenance for so long before people start complaining on social media that your air conditioners aren't working.
Yeah.
Right? Because you deferred maintenance in an effort to not go bankrupt. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you defer maintenance to make the balance sheet look a little better, make the income statement look a little better.
Exaggerating, because he was like, I did take a double check and look. So in 2018, 2019, he spent $500 million annually on capex, right? On maintenance capex. And it looked to me like he spent 35 on the quarter, which means he's barely kissing over 100 million. He's used capex so aggressively. Like, first of all, things didn't get cheaper to fix between 2019 and now. And then second of all, are you going to try to pretend that like nothing broke down in the last, like, there's less theaters, but not to the tune of like where you would reduce capex by a fifth or whatever. It's like, it's bad. Like, I mean, it's not so much bad as it's just a really aggressive way to run a company.
So what I really wanted to talk about in this little session that we have, and thank you for hooking up with us on the live, because it's been a long time since we've talked. You and I sent you a DM a couple weeks ago talking to you. Was it 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, May?
Yeah, something like
asking you what you thought he was going to do with the cash raise. So I kind of wanted to expand that conversation and have it live with you to see what your thoughts. I know your thoughts are very different than mine.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
From that very brief exchange that we had.
What did I say?
I want to know, what are your thoughts if Adam Aaron raises money, what he's going to do with that capital? But first, before we do that, if you were Adam Aaron, I'm going to put you in the CEO seat for a second, or Sean Goodman, how much dilution do you think that they're targeting? Or what if we can't quantify the number of shares, what dollar amount do you think is sufficient to address the working capital deficiency, the capex? What do you think and enough cushion to get them through the next year or two? What do you think they're looking to raise?
Yeah, I'm pulling up the numbers right now just so I can see. All right, so working capital, just correct me wherever I'm wrong on this.
Working capital is negative 800 million.
Okay, and then but 400 million is deferred revenue, right? I have 391. Okay, so here's how I'm thinking about it. I'm staring at it. You're not. I get it. It's fine. 391 million I'm showing as deferred revenue and income. So I'm going to say that. So are you coming to about 600? Oh, okay, so if we take that out,
take that out, negative 400-ish.
Yeah, I'm showing the following just so that we can do the numbers in case I'm looking at this a little funky. I'm showing current assets 740 million, current liabilities 1.7 billion, of which 491 is deferred revenue. So I come to, if I remove that, I have current liabilities of 1.3 versus current assets of 740. If I just remove deferred revenues, which isn't necessarily the right way to do it, to be fair, but it'll give you, if you're asking me what's the least he might raise, then it would be the difference there, which is 600. That said, if you look at, the cash burn is about 100. So I would like no less than 600, no less than 600. But
don't you think he'd want some extra cash on the balance sheet to provide them cushion for any potential quarters that are less than we'd want to see as far as
no
income?
no less than 600, no more than whatever it is he thinks he can raise at a good price. Right.
So I'm thinking, I'm just spitballing here, that it's going to come in somewhere around 1.5–2 billion is what he'd like to raise.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. Like so the documents usually state a number plus, like, I guess I think it's still called a green shoe or something like that, which is the extra. Not everybody uses it, which is why I don't remember the name of it. I think it's a green shoe. Somebody look up that jargon room and see if that's right. I don't remember. But there's a little bit of extra, like, so if you have a really strong capital raise, and people really come in for the deal, there's usually a little extra that the company's willing to raise at a given price. So there's always that possibility, but this one's going to be kind of a rough and tumble secondary is my guess. So I mean, this is really a banker that is going to know the answer to how they're going to strategize any kind of asset raise. The other thing he could do is, and I'm not sure how precisely it'd be done, is he could just renegotiate with the debt holders again, like he did with Antara.
That is one thing he could do, right? Like a debt for equity swap. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
But then that doesn't address the free cash on the balance sheet. So then he's swinging it that 400 million's enough.
Yeah, you're right. Though it will reduce his interest expense.
Yeah, but I mean, if you trade out 2 billion in debt, you're only saving 40 million a quarter on interest payments.
I know it's not enough. You're
it
right.
Doesn't seem like a great trade. So you had mentioned to me in the DMs that you thought he would. This is what really made me change my thinking. When you and I had that very brief DM interchange a few weeks ago, you said that you thought he would not pay off debt at all. He'd just renegotiate it and push it out.
Oh, sorry. You know what? Okay, I know why I said that. At the time, I was thinking one way, but he's okay. So I think he'll actually pay back. I think he will pay back some of the debt. Okay, but I think how he does it is a little bit more straightforward. I don't think he pays back looking at the debt, if you look at the debt schedule, I hit the wrong button. So I'm looking at the balance. So the 10 million he owes for us this year, the 25 next year, and the 118 in 2025. Those are not a big deal.
Right.
Those matter, right? So it's really 2026. Okay. And I think that gets done in a combination of refinance and pay down. That's what I think happens. And it can also partially happen with him just buying back some debt at cents on the dollar, or 40 cents on the dollar. So I can't, for whatever reason, my brain doesn't want to think through how precisely the bankers will allocate each. And also, I think we find out on Monday what the debt market thinks is going to happen to the price of that debt. So if the debt market bids up that debt well over 50 cents, the stuff that's at 40 cents right now, or trading sub 50 cents right now, if it bids it up into 60 or 70, then the debt market's telling you that they're going to force him to pay them back using cash. And so that changes the equation of what's happening, such that he would just try to renegotiate, such that instead of making a dent so much, instead of being able to make a bigger dent on the 2026, that he's going to have to pay some of it, but also try to just negotiate terms farther back. And
my thinking always was that he isn't going to be, and he's kind of telegraphed this by not talking about debt. My thinking is he's more concerned about cash on the balance sheet than paying off debt. I know everybody's heavily leveraged on social media, pushing the idea that he's going to take all this cash raise to pay off debt. And I thought he was going to be more interested in loading up cash on the balance sheet and pushing the debt out than paying it off.
Yeah. I mean, if he pays off the debt, it's only the debt that actually makes a lot of sense for him to pay off, like that 12% debt. But he said on the earnings call what he's going to use money for. He was going to actually use it for deferred maintenance.
Yeah. He didn't even mention debt on the earnings call.
He didn't. That was the thing that's crazy. So it tells you his first move is to try to make the company more profitable. So this is what my little note said: deferred maintenance, bars in the theater in New York City. I'm a fan. Sorry. He might to a very lesser extent, purchase specific theaters that were immediately accretive, is what it sounded like to me. He didn't say it exactly that way, but 3 times the EBITDA probably means that when that theater comes in, it immediately is more profitable than the other theaters, and therefore adds like to operate. It adds to the spread for operating margin between revenue and earnings.
We don't want any non-performing theaters added to the fleet, right?
No. Yeah. If anything, I'd like you to continue to get rid of them, particularly potentially in Europe. Although I got to say, I haven't been following this long enough to know if Europe just generally slows down in the summer or not. But Europe's numbers were not good. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh yeah, I published some stuff on Twitter how we underperformed on our international versus Cinemark, even though they're in a different international market than us. Europe was lagging. Right.
I can't tell if I don't know. Did it do something like that last year? I mean, last year was such a weird year.
I never needed to look in that level of detail before. So I need to go in and finish that analysis.
Yeah.
I was hoping that we'd all be rich in this play before I had to get into the nitty gritty of tracking Europe quarter by quarter.
Yeah. I mean, Anya, who's posted on here, is right. Europe takes a vacation. So I'm knocking on wood and praying that maybe Europe is always seasonally weak in the summer. And in fairness, Latin America doesn't operate quite the same way. So this would be their fall, I guess, because it's like April.
Different seasons.
Yeah, it would be a different season for them. So they might feel nothing as far as like, April through June. So it would have been April through June. So it's really the spring months of Europe. And I don't know if Europe just behaves differently in the spring than the US does.
We have some UK people on the channel. I don't know if any of them are in the chat right now, but maybe we can get some of them to comment. What are these stronger months for theater going, if they know?
If they just happen to know. It's so awkward. It's such a weird question. So this would have been April through June, right? June 30th is the end. So
yep.
Yeah, April through June. So we might just have to look.
So just to close the loop on your thoughts on the debt, I think we're in agreement that the debt that's coming up before 2026, he'll probably find some way to get that taken care of, right? Either pay it off.
Yeah, that's not big enough for it to matter. Yeah.
Or rebucket it with a debt negotiation that addresses 2026 also, right?
Yeah, he's got to be staring at 2026 and like, what am I going to do with this?
It's going to come faster than people think.
Yeah. Because the debt owners also get kind of not happy as every year passes and you're not necessarily making, I mean, they've paid down some of it, but it's just such a big number. I mean, they've paid down like a few $100 million, but it's $3 billion. It's so big. And it's not the kind of company that will magically have a $1 billion cash flowing moment unless it sells off some theaters, which is why I wouldn't mind. Sorry, Europe, we love you. But like, if you had to go bye-bye so that the company survives, maybe later you can come back into the fold. But like,
so let's circle back to the cash raise, May, and the dilution. If we say it's somewhere between 600 million and 2 billion, we don't know exactly what it's going to be, right? And when they combine these two tickers and drop the float with the RS, we're going to be at about 150 million shares or so. So you can do the math on, let's say, 1.5 billion. How many shares he's going to need to sell into the market to raise that, which is what, 100 million?
Yeah.
What do you think that is going to do to the price of AMC once we get past the date that they combine them? Are you worried about that? Or are you?
It's okay. Probably it's not going to be great. That's why I gave out the low number, because what he could do is he could do an initial raise, and that raise would take care of his working capital, and it would actually allow him so I know you're going to hate me for not just answering the question yes or no. I would make a terrible witness on the stand. But because some of the things that he wants to do actually are, they're like a front load of CapEx, but then become a cash flowing, endeavor fairly quickly. such as swapping out the simple stuff, like just swapping out to get those larger. If he's right, and we're not just getting something strange, that the large format screen is significantly more profitable, then let's say he just raises for the working capital to try to get operating income to be a little bit stronger as a percentage of revenue. Then you might just have him wait for a slightly different interest rate environment. I mean, a lot of this ends up being macro. So I could see him doing like, but then you have the overhang of how's he get it done next, which, so this one I will go ahead and admit is beyond my skill set, because the bankers are going to have to talk to him about strategy. And then you're going to really have to depend on him as a CEO to take the right financing strategy. CEO does have to coordinate with the CFO for what is the right strategy to keep the company running financing wise. That's one of the hardest jobs it has, particularly in a turnaround. And this one is where the story is going to get fun for the next year or so. But in general, you know that like if you dilute the company, the shares typically go down, unless the only caveat that's ever happened is if that's already baked in, which it's hard. It's hard to say that it's baked in because you still have valuations that don't look ideal. Let's call it that. But
we have that debate in the Discord a lot, right? There's some people that are saying, "Oh, Tony, it's baked in. Like, don't worry about the price going down." And then we have others that feel like it's going to affect the price. It is a great thing to think about, and I think everybody should be considering what their thoughts are on that. We'll find out together, right, May?
Yeah. The toughness of the call is that if some of the things he does increase earnings, operating income, and profitability, or free cash flow, then it can really, if you look at trailing, then yeah, unambiguously, it's the valuation might be aggressive, but it's a turnaround. So looking at trailing is really misleading because the objectives that are happening necessarily change the numbers for the go forward. And equity is about what is it worth in the future. Now you still have a negative cash flow situation. You still have, limited profitability until some of this other stuff just gets sorted through on the recovery of the film industry in general. So there's still some really weird pieces that are going on. That's why I like holding the debt for now, because I think there's enough really positive stuff where the debt feels like for a less betting girl, but still a betting girl, a little bit easier for me to feel like I understand where it's going to go.
So you're buying the debt at a discount, assuming that the company is going to fix itself and that you'll see some appreciation on that.
Yeah. So basically, if you buy some of the bonds, and here's where with debt, I won't make any kind of big claims because the fact is each piece of debt is a little bit different. But in general, there are 2025 bonds. And at one point, there were some 2025 bonds that were trading well below 50 cents on the dollar. I think they were trading like 46 cents. And then there were some 2026 bonds that are not the Antara bonds that are trading at 40 cents. I think one time they went as low as 38 cents on the dollar. And so let's just use 2026 at 38 cents, 40 cents, just to make it simple. We've got 2020, you've got the rest of this year. So 24, 25, 26, because I think they are June. So you've got 3 years. And so every single year, if they don't go bankrupt, then that bond has to price up by 3 divided by 60. So you should each year make 20 points on that. Right. Which is really big since you're paying 40 and it should be 60 next year, right? So that's assuming that the company's finances improve through this period of time, which is not a bad bet because they just now can finally raise. They still have to raise it, but at least they can do it. Whereas before they could not do it. So
yeah, absolutely.
Right. So that there's that part. Meanwhile, you still get the six and change coupon, but that 6 and change coupon, let's call it $600. We'll keep the numbers simple. So it's 6% of 1,000, which is $60, right? A year, something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, wine. Very hard to think. So kidding. So $60, but you paid 40 to keep the numbers simple. So 6 divided by 4. That's what what the dividend yield feels like to you. Right. So it feels like a 15% dividend yield to you because you only paid $40. So you're going to get $60 every year. So I figure the bonds are a little bit easier for me personally but in fairness, just like if you told any smarter bond person than me by a lot, let's call it, I'll just go ahead and totally admit it. Hey, May, these bonds are trading at $40. That smarter bond person would be like, that thing is going bankrupt, May. You understand that, right? Like, and so you have to like really feel strongly that you have to feel really strongly that AMC is not going bankrupt, and you have to be willing with that investment to let it go, to know that you have the possibility it goes bankrupt. Okay. And though, and a lot of where the things are trading at 40 cents, that's unsecuritized debt. So unsecuritized debt, there's nothing that they can sell that you have any claim on. It just goes to zero and you're done. So there's that. And there was a question on how do you buy bonds. There's only a few, I don't know all the brokers that you can buy bonds on, but I know that E-Trade still lets you do it. And I think some of like the other brokers, I don't know. Do you know, Tony, some of the brokers?
I've looked on Fidelity. It's hard to find it. I would say, guys, call your broker's trading desk and ask them if you can buy bonds. I don't know all the brokers. I haven't looked at all of them that sell it. So, May, I think that a big problem we have in trading AMC is that a lot of people are just ignoring the financials.
Yeah.
And they get caught in this groupthink of only looking at the word short squeeze, and they don't look at the financials at all, right? Even 2 years into this play, there's still people that have not tried to figure out what the financial statements mean. Have you run into that, or what are your general thoughts on that?
You know, I used to have such a snotty opinion as far as these things go, but over the years, okay, this is even before I started any social media whatsoever, but over the years, I've kind of let it go. And it's because, you know, things can be like the skill of trading that style, momentum trading or day trading, as some people think of it as, but I don't think that's quite what is happening. Or like this style of trading is its own format. It's its own art form.
But so, momentum trading, you don't momentum trade something for 2 years on the way down, right? Momentum trading is looking at the chart, grabbing it on the way up, jumping in, hopping out.
There are very short-term momentum traders, and there's a lot of quant funds that literally are trading it for daily volatility. So I can't be negative because some of those people are really profitable. And so I never want to say anything negative because not only are some of them very profitable, they're way the hell richer than I am. So like, you know what? If you are really good at that skill set, you will never hear a negative word. You might hear some envy occasionally. You might hear some frustration, but you won't hear negativity because there are definitely people that make an amazing living off of never looking at the financials and only trading off of what's going on momentum wise with the stock. And
I think what bothers me though, May, is the people that say, you know, they've never looked at the financials. They couldn't talk about a balance sheet, but they say with conviction, this company has no risk of bankruptcy.
Okay.
Like, let's talk before the settlement. Before the settlement, right now, I think there's very little risk of bankruptcy. They needed this settlement.
They did.
Thank God that's off the table now. The risk of bankruptcy in any near-term landscape is not there anymore, in my view.
Yeah,
but the amount of nonsense I had to listen to over the last 3, 4, 5, 6 months of people saying this company is not going bankrupt, but they have never once looked at a financial statement is astonishing to me.
Yeah, you know, like I've always said, like I will never say a negative word about about that style of trading. If you just stay out of my lane. Do you know what I'm saying? Stay out of my lane and we're cool. If you're
much nicer than me, May.
Stay out of my lane and we're good. Otherwise, suffer the consequences.
Much nicer than me.
Yeah.
All right.
A little less trolling than you though in overall of this because I'm a little bit newer.
Well, I'm very blunt in presenting my opinions and my facts on stuff, and that often rubs people the wrong way. But I'm not here to handhold people. I'm here to try and teach them, even if they don't want to hear it. What other random thoughts do you have about what's going on or what to expect?
I mean,
and then let's take some questions.
Really crazy. I think a lot of people do have a decent amount of difficulty. Like, I don't know if people want to put stuff in there that they have questions on, but I know that everybody's a little bit confused as to how many shares they're going to be left with on the other side of this. APE and AMC.
All right, let's talk about that for a second. You want to walk them through it?
No, you do it. I like it. I don't have a really cogent way to say it. It's essentially, if you have APE, it's really easy. It's just divide by 10. You're good, right? If you have AMC, then it gets a little more complicated because for every 7.5 shares you have, you get a share. So that's where I think everyone gets a little bit confused.
So for every 75 AMC you have right now, those will reverse split. You'll have 7.5.
Yeah.
And you'll get 1 bonus share from the settlement.
Yeah.
And if you have APE, those will not get any bonus share, but they will also reverse split 1 for 10.
Yeah. And if you have something that doesn't divide into that, then you may end up with cash.
If you have 80 shares, or if you have 80 shares of AMC, you'll get the 1 for 10. The 1 for 10 is what we got to do the cash payment, right? If you had 1,050 shares of AMC, you'll be left with 100 and a cash payment for 5 shares.
Yeah. It's not going to be straightforward, guys. And there are some folks that are putting great stuff. I don't know if you've already put one video out, but I've seen a couple that are really, really good, that have kind of demonstrated it. But I know that even if you look at it, you really have to start it a while. And then you can always post, what it is you have, and we'll try to do the calculation for you. But there's only a limited amount of capacity I sometimes have for that. So I'll do the best I can.
I know people have questions on that. The other big thing they have questions on, and I want to hear you one more time on this, is how, and I know you're probably going to tell me you don't know exactly, and I get it. None of us know exactly. But if you had to look at Friday's aftermarket close, which was 219 on APE and 385 or so for AMC, how are you calculating that they're going to roughly figure the post-conversion price? So what would it start trading at for the first minute?
Like post-conversion?
Yeah. When the two are combined.
At first I answered this question and now I have no answer, and I'll tell you why. I have no answer because it depends on what happens to AMC. So I could see there's been if this was just a normal stock, then I'd be like, this is what it'll do. But there's been so much, people have had such fun trading this.
Right. We all know that the post-conversion price will be dependent on the two prices, right?
Yeah.
And so we don't know what's going to happen with the two prices between now and conversion date.
Okay. So Okay. Yes.
But if I had to pin you down and say, use 392 for AMC and 219 for APE, where do you roughly see that coming in for post-conversion price?
I would make a terrible, terrible witness on the stand. All right. So
I don't know, Your Honor.
I saw your post, and technically, if all things being equal, and this was any other stock than AMC, that would be right. You would just take the two and then divide by the market cap, the correct market cap of the two. That would technically be the right way to do it. Here's the problem for me, though, which is why I am mysteriously staying quiet. It's not because I'm quiet. It's because there are some crazy things that could happen. Because it's not so the place it has to land is AMC, technically. Independent of APE. I know you know this, right? I know you know this, so we'll just say it for everybody else.
No, but tell us your thoughts.
Like a gymnast, it has to land on top of AMC. It does not land on top of APE. Okay, so it will not. It will, on the day that everything closes out, the record date at close of business day. No one gives an F anymore about what's going on with APE. They only care about AMC. So then there's any number of crazy things that day traders, crazy market manipulators, the people that have weird FTD situations, all that stuff. There's all this crazy that can happen, right? So let's say APE starts, somebody asked me before, is it possible for APE trade above AMC? While unlikely, let me say it that way, while unlikely, if APE were to trade above AMC, then on the close, then those people would lose that spread and you would land on AMC nonetheless.
Right.
So for some crazy reason, right before it closes, people bid ape up for some nutso reason that I can't possibly understand, or they bid ape up and then AMC just decides to crater in front of ape. All of that still, it lands on AMC. It does not land on ape. That's why I'm like super scared to say anything.
Come on, May. Get in social media and get an opinion out there and fall on the sword, May.
No, I refuse to fall on the sword. That's one of the things that could happen.
Come on, May. You need to have people hate you if you're wrong.
No, they hate me for other reasons. Wrong doesn't have to be one of the reasons they hate me. I'm sure I have a strange enough way of expressing myself that there will be another reason. Trust me, you'll find it. So, so there is that I know is starting to go around. Is like, can ape trade over AMC? And that almost scares me because it tells me that there might be some trickster with a lot of capital that's like, F it, let's really mess with these people.
Oh,
So,
man.
like,
Please don't tell us that, May. No tricksters. There's no tricksters in this play at all.
and then with AMC, AMC could close, the spread could close. That would, and then like we mentioned, if the FTDs don't close out, then you do owe the borrow rate the entire time. And to the extent that that spread is being held the way it is, whoever is short AMC now and long ape is going to have to calculate the cost of borrow for the whatever time, because people that are holding that ARB, they want the long ape to neutralize the short AMC such that they have no shares after this thing closes. And so that means that every day that the borrow cost is X, that also will constitute the spread. It will just, so if it starts doing that, then hallelujah, this thing is finally going to trade like a normal set of stocks. but you know what? Even if it does that, there's no bet, because there's no certainty, because these people get really crazy. People are nuts in this stock.
Why do you have any thoughts about why they've not bothered to fix all of the FTD issues?
The only thing that I can think of is that if you have, so the FTDs really are, if I understood it correctly, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I'm like pulling to try to figure out some kind of reason. Technically, if you've got X number of days, then it's the broker / clearinghouse that has to come and get you. Let's say it like that, right?
Yep.
But if you somehow have something going on where each of the brokers is just passing it from broker to broker to broker such that it restarts the dates, then technically no specific person actually made it to the 15 days or whatever it is. It's like the 3 plus the 5 and then whatever. So I think it ends up being 15 in some. So if they're actually playing that game of pass the hot potato, and
which they surely are,
then it technically means that you actually need a rule change, because that sucks and that's not right. And I actually do think that the one that was proposed, which requires that you post a ton of capital for the potential of it, might work. I'm not 100% sure. It's not something I've been focused on enough to really make a strong comment, but it looks like it would make it a lot harder, because then every whatever amount of time that you're passing the buck, you'd have to post a bunch more capital and not be allowed to do other activities that are profitable for you. So it's possible that that's what's happening, but really that needs to be investigated.
Do you think that they're sandbagging these failures to deliver until post-conversion?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because like the numbers still work out reasonably well. It's like 1% or something, but then like the spread is wide, or way wider than that. It's not even close. The spread is so wide.
Yeah, right? I've watched a lot of other of these type of plays, and I'm sure maybe you have, maybe you haven't. We're going into
a handful. I wouldn't say a lot of others.
Where we're going into a reverse split and dilution scenario, where both the short interest and the FTDs are through the roof, and then magically after the reverse split and the dilution announcement, all that shit gets reset down to normal levels. The FTD, the threshold list goes away, the short interest drops. And so that is a concern that I have. I have also seen plays just like this, where the FTDs are high and the short interest is high, where retail is able to squeeze them prior to the corporate event date. So it's a bit of a dice roll but either scenario could happen.
Yeah. And that's the crazy thing. If you guys do get your MOASH before, then the APE shares have to, like I said, they have to land up with the AMCs. So then the very next morning will be the scariest thing you ever saw in your life. But I would say this, if there is a run for the MOAS before, then you would be really in trouble to try to hold puts. That's why I'm like, I'm out of the options market. I'm going to watch and just cheer everybody on.
Yeah, I sent out a message on Friday as I said, before you blindly follow someone who's angry at Adam Aaron and just buy puts, make sure that you have really thought that through, because if there is a squeeze scenario, you're going to lose all that put money.
You'll just go to zero. Don't put a lot in it if you really
feel and the IV is probably going to be really high. If you're betting on a downside on AMC, it already got dropped 25%. I don't know that there's a lot more downside on AMC unless you're buying those puts really far out.
Yeah.
And you're counting on dilution being really negative. And even then, can you still make money on them with the high IV? I don't know that that's a slam dunk play. So I certainly wouldn't recommend it to anyone. I'm not trying to talk anyone out of it, but know what you're doing and watch how much capital you're risking on something like that.
Yeah. And then also, I think it's just gonna be a really cool couple of days. You got to get the strike right too.
Yeah.
The actual, not the strike and the expiry, because we don't actually know when this thing, until that release comes out, we don't know.
Yep. All right. Let's take some questions. I haven't been looking at the chat. Thank you, the mods, for doing the hard work tonight. May, you can pull out a question from yours. I'm looking at mine for a good question too.
I'm actually just looking on the collab screen here, but what about calls 6 weeks out? Is that when, calls 6 weeks out, you got a lot of volatility between then and now. So you're probably paying a lot for the implied vol.
Guys, I want to throw a couple websites out there. If you're not used to looking at implied volatility or the Greeks, you can use a tool like optionstrat.com or optionprofitcalculator.com, and those typically bring in the current implied volatility, and then you can put in the strike price and the date for calls or puts.
Yeah,
and it will give you a graph of where the price needs to go or what happens in a different range of prices if you will make money on calls or puts. So make sure, if you're not a seasoned option trader, that you're using a tool like that to see if it goes where you think it's going to go, up or down, if you can even make a profit. Because a lot of times I don't do options trades because what I think is going to happen, even if it drops to that price, there's still no profit in it.
Yeah.
Because of the IV.
I think the other thing is that if you're going to do out of the money trades right now, it's a little bit more dangerous than deep in the money trades, and there may be other people that are just, options trading has even more styles than other types of trading do. But your real challenge is that once the reverse split happens, the spread between, like right now it's just $1 apart, but when it goes $10 apart, if you're out of the money, you may find yourself way out of any kind of trading range that then happens when the stock starts to settle. So like, for example, if you have a $5 strike, that's a $50 adjusted for the $2 payout price. So realize that, and I still am not, I'm gonna be honest, there are other people that maybe know this a little better, but I've never seen a reverse split plus a payout at the same time. So those things, so what happens is your options will trade non-standard. And for me, I have a setting, I didn't even realize that because I just thought they were trading fractional, which is not true, but they're trading actually non-standard. But unless I change my view, it looks fractional on my screen. But when it trades non-standard, typically those things are a lot less liquid. So now,
we didn't even talk about that. Like, what's going to happen to the options once APE comes back over? Then you're going to have probably non-standard options, right?
Yeah,
if you're buying them now.
Yeah, you'll definitely have non-standard, and they're going to look strange. And also, they have to remark to the new price, so the spreads are going to be like much bigger. So you're really, like, right now, if you're like buying the 4s, then you're buying 40. But if you're buying the 5s, you're buying 50. And while there's only $1 difference, and so you're like, yeah, I could trade up to that, it has to move across $10.
Yeah.
And it really goes to kind of this idea that stocks that trade under $10, the whole way that they trade is significantly different than stocks that trade well over $10. And so, some of you guys are really comfortable with that dynamic. A lot of you guys may not be comfortable with that dynamic. You'll know who you are, and you can make your decisions accordingly.
I just want to reiterate that, like, if you're not a seasoned options trader, if you're just taking advice from an emotional person on YouTube, I'm buying puts, I hate Adam Aaron,
might not be ideal.
Be effing careful, guys. Don't
Or just don't use a lot of money.
Don't get emotional in your trading, because you can lose on options very easily.
Or don't use a lot of money. Use the money that you're comfortable going to zero, and just go ahead and know that when you do the trade, that it's just a learning lesson. Because that, I don't actually have a problem with people knowing that they're doing a trade to learn a lesson, as long as it's a small enough dollar value, because options classes are also really expensive. So you know what? Once and for all, afterwards, you'll know for sure what the deal is. And that can sometimes be a very valuable lesson. And then if you happen to make money on it, don't think you're too clever, because this is a very strange scenario. Review what actually happened and count yourself very lucky, because you just happen to be in a trade, which luck over skill any day of the week. All right.
Zach Young says, May, do you know any other reverse split stocks that went on to new highs other than Priceline? I'll let May answer that.
Yeah, GE did.
But for Zach, I want to let you know, I did a video about 2 or 3 months ago, Zach, going over a dozen or so companies, similar market cap size to AMC, that did reverse splits. And good or bad, I shared all of the results of the stock prices on those stocks with you guys. And I can assure you there were plenty that went on to massively new highs or new highs after the reverse split. So if you're only used to looking at penny stocks that do reverse splits, you're going to have a very different viewpoint than if you're looking at larger market cap stocks like AMC.
Yeah. I mean,
go watch my video.
Definitely watch this video, because I think that's the right call. I really only traffic in the S&P 500. So the only one that's done anything meaningful in the last years that I've been focused on it that I can remember is really GE. But I don't do as much in stocks that have really special situations like this.
One thing that I noticed, May, in that set of stocks that came up when I did the screen is until they had fundamental changes in the financials, that is when they turned around. So reverse splits, guys, is mathematically no change to the company or to your position in the company. If a stock is going down because of bad fundamentals, which is like 99% of penny stocks, after a reverse split, it's going to continue to go down. You should always expect that. But and AMC may still go down after a reverse split if the fundamentals are not fixed. But when the companies fix the financial statements, that is when you start seeing these things turn around. And that might take a few quarters, right? It might go down for a while after a reverse split until they fix the balance sheet, for example. What do you think, May?
I mean, the thing with AMC that's so awkward is, let's say they do the reverse split and then they dilute all in the same quarter. Well, that quarter's numbers are going to look great with all due respect afterwards, because you got, like, no matter what, they'll probably either pay down the most expensive debt, or they'll pay off or they'll buy like heavily discounted debt, which reduces the overall debt by a lot. And then you have the potential for the rating upgrade, because quite a lot of their debt is, not quite a lot, but they have enough bonds that are CCC minus or CCC. If my broker isn't delayed on the ratings, but they have enough debt that could get an upgrade that would just give you this positive viewpoint for what's going on in the future. From a sheer perfect fundamentals, if you go on backwards numbers, or if you think that the company isn't going to change at all, such that you believe that the past is relevant for how you want to think about the valuation for the future, then yeah, you might have some people that, think about valuation and feeling like it's not going to ever happen. it's really the debt, though. I don't know another way to say it. If it weren't that the biggest problem that they have is the debt right this minute in history for Q3, might feel differently, but we all know Q3 is going to be a big post. Q4 will probably be a decent post, given you guys, I think, had said there was something like 34 potential blockbusters. I feel like you said at the beginning of the year. And so even after July, we still have like about, 10 or 15 still to go, 15 to go. Because I think he said there was 19 that come out already. Is that right?
Well, I look at wide releases, and then when I look at the wide releases, then I try and guesstimate which one of these is going to be a blockbuster.
Okay.
Right.
So and what are you still thinking is up for this year?
I was fairly negative on Q3 and Q4, even though folks in my Discord were like, Tony, you don't know. Barbie's going to be the one. And I was wrong on that. I was wrong on that. Barbie just blew me away because the previews of it didn't really speak to me. But then again, I'm not the target audience, right?
You maybe. Have you thought about a pink hat?
Yeah, no.
So, hey, you guys can post in the comments that Tony should get a pink hat. Let's hear it.
But Q3 is going to blow away my estimates, which is fantastic, right? I want to see
Q3 is going to be so good.
Q4, I think, is going to be better than what I originally had estimated for Q3. My original estimate for Q3 was below 2 billion, but we're going to far exceed that now. And I think Q4 will come in close to what Q3 is going to end up being. So that is good. And now we know what number of domestic box office from Q2 we need to hit to get a positive EPS. So that's kind of our benchmark, right?
I would say yes. And also it seems like overwhelmingly the people have spoken for the pink hat. So
Tony, get a pink cowboy hat. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Maybe I should. If we turn a profit for Q3, I'll do a pink cowboy hat. How about that?
I think that's a deal. I think that works. Yeah, I mean, Q3 is gonna be good, and I just wish, there are some people that just really know films, and they're also doing work on this, which I full props. So I am really intrigued. These, like, Oppenheimer was also, like, I have friends that won't stop talking about it. I don't know if it's the same for you over there, but there's just I mean, if there's even a handful more, because I know, I feel like he started the year, and if anybody else just knows for fact, stick it in the comments. But I feel like he said at the very beginning of the year that he was really excited about this year in general because there were potentially 34 blockbuster releases. Maybe from your notes, or maybe someone just knows. And so, so I was counting when he said it on this call, there were 19 that have already been released. I think some of those did include Barbenheimer and all of that, Mission Impossible, et cetera. But that still leaves a lot of potential, Barbie type blockbusters that might come out in the back of the year. And if we get one or two of those, then this will be a really cool year for AMC.
Yes, absolutely. I think overall the news for AMC is very good, right? The Q3 is far exceeding our expectations. People are going to the movies. Streaming is under pressure. They've got to fix the cash flow issue. They've got to fix the balance sheet. They have the ability to do that now. The only thing that I'm concerned about, and it's just an unknown for me, right? We'll all find out together. Is what is the dilution size going to be and the timing of it? That's really the only uncertainty for me right now, as far as what's going to happen to the price.
I mean, if he pulls that bandage up, so typically August would not be the month that you would do it. So we're not going to find out this month.
You think not? Yeah, that's a good topic to cover, because
very few deals come out in August. That's usually a slow month. But come Labor Day, usually anyone that is legitimately got a shot at raising capital might do it.
So can you explain to the folks why, for those that, that they hear the executives talking about, they wanted the settlement before August because of the shutdown in Wall Street of the money people. Can you explain that to them briefly?
Yeah, it's actually not as It's not really that complicated. It really is because Europe, I mean, so if you're European somehow watching this at the crack of dawn, Europe will tell you most of them are in Spain right now in a Speedo, hanging out, getting sunbathing. Sorry for expressing myself with such directness, but that's where most of Europe is. They're either in Spain, Italy, they're on some island, trying to get a tan right now. They're really not, if you tried to, so what happens when you do, a roadshow, which probably there are two bankers for AMC City and Goldman Sachs. So one of the two will be the lead manager or they'll co-lead it. I mean, it would be very strange if they did it any other way, but you know what? Every day is a new day in this market. But they would be essentially, they would do a roadshow. And usually what a roadshow is you have a bunch of people, they try to get meetings and they go to all the major cities that investors that would be interested in legitimately take down a slug and support the company would be. And then they usually go to Europe. But if they went to Europe in August, I think everybody in Europe would be like, meet us in Ibiza or something like that. And then maybe, you could have a road show. I get it, so bring your Speedo with you, deal team, if that's what you really need to do. But it would be unlikely because it's also quite not European to like take a meeting while you're like hanging out in the south of France drinking wine. Anyways, I'm just saying.
So September is what you're expecting when we'll hear something, or later September. Yeah. What timing wise, what do you think?
I mean, they might announce the timing. Maybe, I mean, it's not super common. They might like announce when the road show starts or something like that. You might, because remember, usually they'll like from the broker's side, if they do it that way, I mean, technically there's a million different ways that they can raise secondary. They can do a secondary, but technically the bankers would know in advance and they would have to set up meetings. So they would like be telling you the dates of the roadshow and then stating, like giving you a tentative closing for the deal.
So do you think this is 100% going to be at the market offering, or do you think he's going to be trying to cut some deals? We touched on this a while ago earlier on. Is he going to be trying to cut some deals with the debt holders or do it at the market combination? What are your thoughts?
I don't know. See, I think he probably has one more conversation with the debt holders because that's really with the debt trading so low. It's a legit conversation, because you're sitting there, if especially if you were one of the initial debt providers, right? You've actually seen a 60% decline in the principal value of your investment, even though your client or your investment has paid whatever it is, 6% in the case of the bond that we were using before, 6 and change percent. They've paid like champs every single quarter. So you're not mad at them per se, but right. As far as your own balance sheet goes, you've seen a 60% decline in the principal. It's a little bit like, so, and so if they came to you and said, hey, look, I think that, what are your thoughts if we renegotiated this debt and pushed it out? I would like, even if he just pushes it away from 2026, I don't know that he can push it out with a lower rate unless he raises capital. That would be really weird. But if he could roll some of it back so that 3 billion number isn't so dramatic, and give him just give himself some more time to make more money. I mean, like he did actually, I think in 2 quarters ago, he took on some 2029 debt, rolling some of the 2025 back to 2029.
So what are if you had to say percentage chance that it's going to be some of it at the market, do you think that is likely?
Okay,
so that is going to go. Is he going to go to institutions and ask them to buy it up?
There is a legit other way to do it, which is just to do an aftermarket secondary where all the brokers all day long, but it would just be so crushing to do it. Because
so he goes to the brokers and asks them to take down some shares and then they sell it to retail or whoever.
They'll mostly probably try to drum up some other side of that trade, some other institution. It's a really awkward thing. Like, it's not really given what AMC is, it would be awkward to do it that way. They'd probably want to do a roadshow to explain, or it could be the case that there's some newer, fancier way that they do it. Like maybe they really do only use Zoom and do it live stream. And so everybody can kind of see, but typically, it's not I mean, like, I don't know if it's more common but it wouldn't have been common like before COVID to do it that way. Maybe it is, but I it's not common for a company this size to do it that way. Because what happens during the roadshow is the company goes around and argues its case to the investors, and so that the investors can then provide an indication of interest, and they would give you a price for which they're interested. You know, the bankers will have an approximate deal price, even on a secondary. That happens 100% every time for an initial public
I've
offering.
talked about that in my Discord, like what my thoughts are.
What do you think?
Well, I don't want to say it. It's lower than the current price.
Yeah, I mean, usually to take a slug down, you're going to want a discount. Like if there was one buyer that took down a lot of shares, a lot of the shares that are needed. But yeah, the secondaries almost always come at a discount and are usually a good deal.
I think it's worth mentioning though, like if they are going to be going to talking to institutions and they're asking them to take on a large amount of shares, it's going to be at some discount to the current price.
It'll be a discount to the current price, and then it'll come down to fundamentals. That's why you have to do the deal. So the bankers will have
and
to.
Then when we look at fundamentals and we look at what analysts are valuing the shares at right now, you have to take that. I'm taking that into account. I mean, if you look at what the analysts are valuing AMC at, it's $2, which is $20 post conversion.
Yeah. But that's also why I'm thinking that they might renegotiate directly with the bondholder. Like, this is going to be a heavily banked. It's going to be what are the personalities involved? Because, I mean, it is the case that if they do some more dilution on the debt side to lower the debt profile of the company and then raise capital, I'm not 100% sure that necessarily appeases someone that's on the equity side, but like the bankers are going to be doing a lot of calculations to try to talk about, I mean, they probably have already done it. So he probably has a master plan. All I can say is that for those that think he's not going to dilute at all or raise capital, I would be shocked out of my mind given how the earnings call went.
I don't think there's going to be anyone. I don't think there is anyone that thinks he's not going to dilute. I did a survey though on my. Is
there anyone left? He's not going to dilute.
Yeah, no. Everyone thinks he's going to dilute May, but the vast majority of people, I was surprised, think that he's going to dilute 400 million shares out of the gate.
No, guys, that's not how. No,
I was shocked.
Let's just get
I was shocked. Clear. Like they're assuming the very worst case scenario, and that is not going to happen.
Let's nip that in the bud. No one dilutes all the way up to their new cap. Okay. Like if you diluted all the way up to your new cap, that would be the single, like he's not that, he's a lot of things, but he's not a dumb man, guys. Okay. Like he's not a dumb man. You wouldn't like imagine just for a moment, guys, anyone that's listening who thinks that if you diluted all the way up to 400 million, yeah, you'd have a lot of cash, but unless you plan on buying back a ton of stock with that cash, you would have no other ability to raise capital. That would be you would not do that.
In Texas, May, we call that shooting your wad. He's not going to shoot his wad in one go.
No, it's not even necessary. You don't need to do that. There's not even that much debt. That would be ridiculous. You wouldn't be shooting your wad. You'd be taking a fucking watch my language. You'd be taking a bazooka to jump a can. Do you know what I'm saying? Like when I jump cans, I use a BB gun or something like that. I don't use a bazooka. Why would you do that? That doesn't even make any sense.
I wish we could get that through to people. He's not likely to dilute 400 million shares.
All the scenarios, that's a zero scenario. That's a 0% case. Now, and it's a 0% case because that would be so unnecessary. You know, so let's really explain raising the cap on shares. First of all, it's really rare that companies hit their cap. And if you go through it's not common that every company has a cap. Some do, some don't. Okay. But it's not uncommon either that companies have caps. So it's kind of like user's choice roulette wheel, like what the founders, whatever management team, whatever their deal was, they just did it. But not all companies have it. But if you look at it, I think even NVIDIA recently raised their cap or something, or one of the big companies, and there was zero risk that they were anywhere near it. It's just that because they, I think, did a stock split or something, they wanted to have the ability, even though they didn't need the capital, to be able to raise capital. So mostly the raising of the cap is for the long term to not have an issue to raise capital. There would be zero chance that you would just raise up to it'd be so awkward because let's say you were thinking, oh, I need 400 million shares worth of capital. Then you would set the cap at 1 billion more shares.
Right.
You wouldn't set it at
He's got to leave himself he's got to leave himself a lot of headroom for future cash raises. He's not going to take it all down on day one.
Okay, there's some very funny comments on what different jargon means in different countries. I am laughing. Your viewers
we had to add a little bit of levity, May. All right, guys, what questions do you have for May? I don't want to keep her all night. It's 8:30 here, 9:30 in New York. You're in New York, right, May?
Yeah.
I'm sorry you didn't get to meet my son while he was up there.
I know, that sucks. That's my fault. I don't think it's your son's fault. Although
you had a tough schedule and he had a tough schedule.
My hope, though, is that he had such a good time with his new friends here that he was just like living his best life. Though
he had a good time. He's safely back home now.
Probably can't tell half of it.
Next summer, he's got his internship in California.
Wow. Is he going finance route then, it sounds like? Or
he's doing his majors in finance. He's doing a 5-year program. So he'll have his bachelor's in finance and his master's in accounting.
Wow. So he's going to be a finance nerd. How do you feel about that?
I love it. I did not tell him what to do. I thought he was going to go the engineering route.
Okay.
But he kind of figured out, he went undeclared his freshman year. And then his sophomore year, he applied to the business school. So
it's so sophisticated to have an internship so young, but I feel like everybody's doing it these days. I definitely didn't know what I was doing when I was in college.
I changed my major like 3 times, May, in the first 18 months.
I don't know, but kids these days are much more like on the ball. It's kind of crazy. Okay.
What other questions y'all have for May?
I do still own my APE shares because there'd be no reason to let go of them until the date is announced and it trades all the way up. After that, I might just take some profits on it because my cost basis is kind of low on it. And then I do think I still want to just own a few to see, just so that I'm always kind of in it, but I have the debt. So I like the way the debt looks from like a volatility perspective, quite frankly. And, if I'm right and AMC is not in any way going bankrupt, then that pays me a nice little happy 16% dividend yield. What more could a girl ask for? Do you know what I'm saying? That's definitely better than money market.
RazTube says, what happens to his $4 cash secured put for September? I mean, it's not for sure that your brokers, that you're going to be assigned on that, right? Just because it dropped below $4.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be assigned, but you might need to close it out. Unfortunately, depending on how much volatility was in it when you bought it, just watch it really closely and find a place where you're cool. Unless you feel very passionately about like rolling that roulette wheel. I mean, the one thing with a $4 put, if you were long, it can go to 0. If you were short, then you can only lose 400, right? So there is that element of it. That's the beauty of lower dollar value, is that your max, whereas like with other, it feels very infinite what you could gain or lose. It's very defined because 0 is 0 after all. AMC is not going to go to 0. So you can kind of figure out, I'm not sure if you're short that put or long that put.
Finny T wants to know, what is the settlement date for the 7.5? My understanding, and May, you can jump in too, is that on the date that the conversion happens, they're gonna reverse split AMC. This will all happen instantaneously, but
yes,
they'll reverse split AMC. They'll take a snapshot of who all the holders are at that moment, and they'll parcel out the settlement shares. And then they'll bring APE over and then combine them. But all of that to us will pretty much happen instantaneously.
Yeah, it'll happen end of day. It always happens end of day.
You think it'll be end of day?
Yeah, they would never do an inter-day because there's a file change that happens.
I was thinking it would happen pre-market, and they'd like hold the ticker until market open and do all that cleanup pre-market. But you're saying you think it'll be end of day?
They usually do it end of day. I mean, look, but it's usually there's a file that goes out that is what they call the security master. And it has like these weird things in it that just basically tells your system to switch from QSIP 1 to QSIP 2 and then QSIP to point this way. And then you wake up the next morning and it's like, oh.
I guess actually we're saying the same thing, just in a different way. Tomato, right? There'll be a date, and then you'll wake up the next morning. I'm thinking of it as pre-market, but you'll wake up the next morning and it'll be changed.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't know what the aftermarket people end up doing. To be fair, that one's a good question. I never trade the aftermarket, so someone that trades the aftermarket may know. But that file doesn't go out at 4:30 because there's usually a couple of cleanups that are done. If it's helpful, it might actually go. I guess the aftermarket trades, I think, until like 7:38, and then there is a pause, and so it probably goes sometime after that.
Mediocre wants to know, what do you think about the seesaw method and the rabbit ears trading?
That's not a question. I'm a fundamental person. I don't know. That sounds like
you don't do charting?
That sounds like a charting stuff. I have great respect for them. I don't go in their lane. Like I said, that's not my lane. I know. I'm sure it's awesome. Somebody else can post and respond to him.
Rich Smith says, long-term, will AMC pull through? I mean, we're going to have to watch and see what happens with domestic box office. I did a lot of analysis earlier this week about, where they've gone in the fleet size, the number of theaters. So they've dropped from 1,000 to 900, and 42 of those theaters were dropped in the last 12 months. And they need to cut more dead weight out of the fleet. Yeah. Would you agree, May?
I mean, I would like to understand why Europe is doing what it's doing. That's my biggest beef. That's the one that really stands out when you do it.
I think if they can continue to cut non-performing or underperforming locations and get to a point where every location they have is profitable, that 2025, 2026 look really, really good.
Oh, I see.
If domestic box office continues growing, we don't even necessarily need to get to 11 billion, but they're a little bit overweight on underperforming locations.
Yes, they do. There's got to be theaters.
When you see, like, May, did you see that analysis I posted where Cinemark is making the same as the attendance is the same as AMC, even though we have twice the amount of theaters?
I did. The major, okay, so yes, it's a little bit lower in the US, even though our theaters are smaller, but the real problem, that's why I was saying the real problem is Europe, because the European numbers are so bad. If you look at AMC, you probably noticed that too when you were looking.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the international and AMC was way underperforming. But so, guys, to answer your question, we don't know. Things are heading the right direction. AMC, I think, is making the right decisions. We've seen them trimming up the fleet, closing locations. They're doing the right things, but a lot has to continue to go their way. We need we need the actors strike over. We need the writers strike over. Those hopefully will be cleared up, in the next few months, although we don't know.
Yeah.
And we need the domestic box office to keep growing. It's trending the right way. So I don't see there's nothing negative in the long term, but you need to pay attention to those things.
Yeah. In case anyone from AMC is watching, can you please explain why Europe did what it did last quarter? That's I'll keep saying it. Why Europe? Why did you perform so poorly as a set of theaters? Sorry, I had to.
And then they need to clean up some of the debt, right? That's the other long pole in the tent.
Yeah. And then Hollywood, you need to make good movies that we all want to watch. All right.
Please, Hollywood, help out, right? Do your part.
I am kind of interesting. It looks like for the concessions, it's going to take a while for it to be meaningful. And that's actually fine. Once
concessions or retail popcorn?
I'm sorry, the retail popcorn, you're right.
It barely got mentioned. And then even when he did mention it, he said when they go completely wide, grocery stores and everything, 100 million. Like I saw people on Twitter saying we were going to have 100 million in profit from popcorn in Q2. And I was like, that seems a little aggressive,
I agree. I'm with you on that. I wasn't thinking that it was an immediate profit gainer. Let me say it that way, because it does take a while to build that business. I think actually, if you look at what like Pop Secret was sold for, even then you're not going to get to this crazy number.
But the good news is if they ever tell us the numbers, like what, we don't even know what the net profit on popcorn was. They didn't tell us that, and it's not in the 10Q. But if they are turning a profit on popcorn, whether it's $1 million or 10 million or 100 million, that is all goodness, right? I don't care what the number is.
Yeah.
I care that they're
profitable.
They're exploring other revenue streams. That is the main thing. This management is not working to bankrupt the company. They're working to explore other revenue streams.
Yeah, my suspicion is there wasn't quite enough interesting this quarter, because the thing that's always tough with those things, as you probably know, is that you've got to fund inventory first. So my suspicion is even if you look at it from a cash flow basis, it's going to still look slightly negative because you're still on the ramp up. I think that, just in case anybody's wondering, because when I go into Walmarts when I'm traveling, because they're, or even when I look at the New York Walmarts, they're still struggling to keep inventory, which means that demand is far exceeding supply. Amazing. So on the income statement, it'll look great, but on the cash flow statement, because you've got to fund the new inventories, it's going to look a little bit wonky.
They need to get me in there, May, and help me. I will go in there and help them ramp up that production. That's what I did for.
You should.
That's what I did for 15 years was manage product launch and factory ramp up.
Yeah. So this is something, second nature. It's not an easy thing to do.
It is not. And that's why I was very hesitant to give people blowout numbers, because I know how new product launch goes. Not in food, but I did it in high tech.
Yeah.
And it's people are way overestimating what was going to happen in Q1 and Q2. You have a ramp of a product and you have a ramp of production. So Adam, if you're watching and you need someone, let me name my price and I'll come fix that. I'll come fix that shit for you.
Yeah. And then if the brand is able to continue to grow new products on it, I still think I always joke, and I know this is like not appropriate in some ways, but I think the snow caps look like like that particular emoji, and they should just.
The snow caps? What is a snow cap?
Really? Oh no. It's that chocolate with the little tiny dots on it that you see, the snow caps. Somebody put a snow cap emoji on there. Hold on, let me see if I can find. I can't believe you don't know the snow caps. It's one of the major candies at every but can you Google it on your side?
I can Google it. Yeah, I don't buy a lot of candy, May. So.
Oh.
Is that a candy they sell?
There's one that has a little snow cap emoji on there. Is the little chocolate soft serve ice cream?
Okay, I see it. I've never actually seen that before in my life.
You've never looked at? They're really delicious. I'm not going to lie. I'm a big fan of snow caps.
All right.
We're getting a lot of snow cap emojis going on right
now. I have never heard of that.
Participation.
If I'm buying a candy in a movie, it's usually the hot tamales, because I like that.
Oh, that is yummy.
The gummy stuff with the little extra kick, but they don't sell that at AMC. So I'm usually just a popcorn or burger or pizza is what I get.
I looked recently to see, are snow caps still selling at AMC, guys? I don't know if anybody's got that.
That must be a New York thing, May. Snow caps.
No, even when I was a little kid. I've been eating snow caps since I was a little kid, but only at the theater. I didn't even realize until much later that you could buy them outside of the theater. That's kind of an interesting thing, is that I like this candy idea, because I think for a lot of kids, some of the candies in AMC, you only associate that candy with AMC, like Good and Plenty's. I don't think anyone would ever, does anyone buy Good and Plenty's outside of AMC, or where's the Juju Fish? I guess people do buy Juju Fish outside of AMC. I don't know. Anyways, are there any other questions? I don't drag this out on everybody's Sunday. Do you see anything on your side? I'm trying to see.
Rick says he likes snow caps and milk duds. I do like milk duds, Rick.
I'm worried about my teeth, Rick. Otherwise, I'd be okay to share the milk duds with you.
Yeah, that shit gets stuck in your back teeth, right, man?
Yes,
All right, May, thank you for your time tonight. We
All right,
appreciate you
guys.
sharing your knowledge and your
I
unique.
appreciate you for
Yeah.
inviting me. Great post, by the way. I do enjoy all your posts. So everybody follow Tony, even though most people here are followers of Tony. So like,
There were people asking before we started, May, Tony, why are you still covering AMC? Whether or not I'm in the trade, guys, I'm just like any other trade that I take. I'm always looking for re-entries on certain signals.
yeah.
And there is a mountain of misinformation and clickbait going on AMC. And I have a lot of friends and people that I care about that are in this trade. And I'm not going to sit by idly and let clickbait and misinformation go unanswered. So while I may slow down my coverage on AMC, once we get past the conversion and the reverse split, if there is misinformation being put out, I will be there.
Maybe come hang out in the bonds.
Yeah, I will look at the bonds, May.
Look
I
and
need
see
to
if
I need to find if one of my brokers allows me to buy them. Thank you, May. Love
right.
you. Have a
Later,
good
everyone.
night. Thank you, guys. Thank you to the mods, and we will see you on the next one.